All right, everybody. What's good? What's good? What's good? I'm glad you guys could join us. We're going to have a fire. No, it's not even going to be a fire conversation. All right. This is going to be straight up volcanic. This is going to be like straight up atomic, like nuclear conversation that we're about to have right now. I've been excited about this all week, and it's going to be wonderful, and you guys are going to love it. And this is going to be a special live stream that's going to focus a lot on conservative media. These are the original queens of Black conservatism. And without further ado, she hails from Northern Virginia. She is the host of Sunny's Corner on Sirius XM, The Patriot 150. She is the mighty, the lovely, the amazing Sunny Johnson. What's good, sis?
You hit a beat drop on Patriot 125.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was 150. Okay.
No, 125. Yes.
125. Forget everything I said. Don't listen to me. All right. And up next, she hails from Southern California. She is the managing editor of RedState.com, or editor at large, one of my bosses. She is also the host of the Just Listen to Yourself podcast. Let me introduce to you the lovely, the awesome, the queen, Kira Davis.
I just gave myself an applause. Thank you, Sunny. Thank you.
What's up, sis?
How you doing? It's so great to be here. Sunny and I just hung out last month at
after
CPAC.
far too long.
After far too long.
It was so good catching up with you.
Yep. And we don't do, Jeff, you're in this is rarefied air here because we don't do a lot of appearances together. We really can't because we're both talkers. We're both loud. We're both opinionated. And so we don't appear a lot of places together. And a lot of people don't even know that we're good friends, but we really are. It's just that we can't be on the same stage.
And I'm like, if they got Kira there, then our voice is going to be well represented. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
So she can handle that. So yeah, definitely you are one of my favorite conservatives. We kind of started together. We grew together. We got our bruises and our scars together.
Yes,
and when most of the people in this business look at how to tear other people down or just shit on other people, Kira was always one to pour into you and to love on you and to reinforce you, because we all know you get into those moments where you're ready to throw your hands up and just be like, F all of this. And she's the one that's
somebody else.
And she's the one, and she's the one that's like, okay, stop. And really think about what you're saying and how you're moving, and is that why you're not happy? And for a long time, I would think, what would Kira do? How would Kira look at this? Just to temper my more explosive side. When you have someone reminding you that grace exists and reminding you of why it's there and reminding you of what it does when you give grace to other people. And Kira was a huge force for me in making sure that was forward in my messaging and how I carry myself and how I present myself. So a lot of what you see when I'm steadfast on giving people grace or handling myself in a certain way, this beautiful sister here helped me to get to that place. So I love you, boo.
So sweet. I love you too. You're gonna make me cry.
That's awesome. Yeah, y'all just listed off. Yeah, y'all just listed off all the reasons why I wanted to get you guys together. Now I'm gonna tell the audience, I'm not gonna be able to say much. They've already warned me beforehand, so I'll be able to ask some questions here and there, but y'all aren't going to hear from me very much, and that's how it should be when we're in the presence of two powerhouses. So I want to kind of go into what you guys were already talking about. How did you guys meet?
Oh my gosh, we met in a field in Missouri. Do you remember that, Sunny? Yes.
A literal
field, a cornfield. Literally, I have the pictures. Oh my God, I have to go find the pictures.
Of nowhere.
The pictures are somewhere. Yes. We were literally in a cornfield. It was a Tea Party event that was put on by an independent organization, and so we were both booked as speakers, and it was in this cornfield, and a few other people were there. But Sunny I knew who Sunny was because she was at Breitbart, and she had, I think, recently just spoken at CPAC. And so I knew who she was, but I'd never met her. And we were in the green room, which was just a tent behind the stage in this field. And we're waiting for our turn. Of course, there's a whole bunch of people in front of us. So we were there for hours, and we just started talking, and she started telling me about her life story. And she started, the more she talked, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is so intriguing. And she's so intelligent. And then she told me, you probably don't remember this, Sunny, but she told me a story about her sister and some of the things that her sister had been going through. And she mentioned her family and talked about where she came from and her roots and what type of family she was from. And I was just so moved by her story, and also surprised that there was a lot about us that was similar. Like, we were a lot alike, even though maybe people would listen to us and see us and not think that, but we were. So she was immediately, to me, it felt like we both were just totally open with each other. Like, immediately we kind of got it. And then also just being the only two Black people in the middle of this cornfield, it's like,
I mean, and it was like the perfect setting for the horror movie. Like, everything about it was perfect for, like, you really should not be doing this. But about 20 minutes of me bouncing in the bounce house and all, like, because I acted like a complete kid.
There was a bounce house there.
Yeah, it was fun. But that was also one of the times I'm like, because this is what I was in the process of about the time that I ran into Kira. I was in the thinking of, they hate my culture. So I'm going to stuff my culture down their throat. Like, you want me to come out to a cornfield in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by very few people that look like me. I think Wayne Dupree was there too, right? Wayne was there.
No.
Wayne was there.
And Pastor.
Yeah,
Pastor,
and C.L. Bryant. So that was like the four of us. Yeah, so we were there, and it was just, I was like, you're gonna get my culture, because it keeps being said, like conservatism isn't a culture. And I wouldn't have said it was until the passing of Rush Limbaugh. And when I started to see how much of an influence that he had on everybody, I was like, okay, so he was their culture. He was their cultural force. He was their vehicle by which they moved their ideology forward. That came through Rush. So anything that most conservatives knew, they knew it because Rush brought it up as a subject. So when you start to think about it in terms of that, they very much want you to become a part of their culture without you bringing your culture with you. And
you know what, Sunny? I want to interrupt.
Around the time where I was like, you're going to take this culture.
I'm going to let you finish that story because I do want to hear the end, but I'm going to interrupt you and say that for me, meeting you was an encouragement in that respect. Like, at that time in my life, I was trying to fit into a culture, and then meeting you, I was like, no, I don't have to do this. I can be exactly who I am. I don't have to do this.
Okay, yeah. I can give you the line that made me fall in love with Kira.
I know it.
I can give you the line that made me fall in love with Kira. Kira said on this stage in front of all of these white Tea Partiers, I am not a conservative because of you. Like, I probably don't like half of you. And half of you are probably not going to like me. I am a conservative because the principles work. I was like, that's my sister. I got her. You know what I'm saying? That was the one thing I heard from Kira. I was like, oh no, she got it. She gets it. She understands it. She realizes what this is. This isn't me coming here trying to make friends with you. This is me coming here trying to start a conversation and spark a dialogue with you. And if you only look at it in terms of the go along to get along, then you're going to have a rough experience in my presence. So like that was always how I carried myself.
Yeah.
So let me ask this then. Because we're kind of getting into it. What was the environment back then? I mean, and how did you see it kind of evolve, or did it evolve, or just talk to us a little bit about what the environment was like back then during like the Tea Party days when there were so few Black conservatives around.
I would say that was like Carlton conservative days for sure. Right? Like we didn't have a lot of alternative voices. I would say Sunny was one, and I think I became one, but I think there was like back then I used to know every Black conservative on the scene. I knew every single one because there wasn't that many. We were just a very small group. It was a fledgling movement. I mean, I liked the passion of the Tea Party movement. Unfortunately, what happened with that is the same thing that happens with any activist movement, which is when people learn that they can make money off of activism, it like necessarily becomes corrupt. So it really faded away. But what I did love about the Tea Party movement is that it brought me into the orbit of true conservatives, some real conservatives who didn't really care about, because like the thing we battle against as Black people in on this side of the fence is like people wanting to make us just white voices that are coming out of Black bodies. And so what happened was I found a circle of friends, white, Black, otherwise, who are like, no, we don't care about that. We want to advance the message. We care about your authentic self. But those were it was a wild west back then. I mean, blogging was just starting, right? Breitbart were the big kids on the block at that time and the only kids on the block at that time. That was who you wanted to work for if you got the chance. There was no real other alternative media. It was strange and maybe a little bit lonely, I guess, but it always felt like we were heading somewhere, like we were going to maybe make a difference with being unified on a message, but then Trump came along and blew all that up. So a different landscape now.
For me,
I don't know. What would you say?
For me, it was, I had no problem with the beginning of the Tea Party. And that was because that was when you had a level of freedom to really broach and talk about any subject without getting the kind of pushback you get with establishment Republicans and conservatives. So when I would go to Tea Party rallies on the ground, the people there are ready for this conversation. Like they are not scared of it. They don't run from it. And they don't give a damn that you're Black. Like they trust their own intelligence enough to stand in front of you and attempt to poke holes in what you're saying to them. To me, that's brilliant. That's absolutely, that's all I can ask of you, because I have to be able to defend myself. So if you're going to give me that level of respect, then I'm going to take it. And one of the other things that was so beneficial about that time period, again, because of the intellect of these people, was that that's where you got your crash course in the Constitution. That's where you got your crash course in the Federalist Papers. That's where you got like that. They want to sit down and explain it to you. They want to go through line after line, and if it's something in there that they need to pull out for you to have perfect understanding, then they're going to do it. So I went through multiple sessions of this where people would just go through the Constitution with me. People would just go through the Declaration of Independence. You know what I'm saying? Our founding documents, because it was important to them. Not that we say founding documents, but that we know what they are and why they were made. And that's the difference between the grassroots people, the people that are on the ground that carry a pocket constitution with them everywhere they go. Like that's the difference between those people and the Republican establishment.
Yeah.
So the Republican establishment will say Constitution while they are passing laws that bastardize it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what the difference is. They say it, but they don't mean it. And
Right.
I think that you have more people at the grassroots level that are really willing and open and honest to having this discussion. And constantly they feel like they're the outsiders, just like we feel. So with that understanding, I started to realize that I needed to learn white conservatives. Like I needed to study them. The same way we're like, don't judge us or stereotype us or do it. That's the respect that we want. So if we're gonna ask for that respect, then we can give it. So I was like, if I'm gonna be in this space, then I'm gonna learn you. I'm gonna learn everything about you. I'm gonna learn why you move. I'm gonna learn how you move. I'm gonna learn every one of your talking points, every one of your stereotypes. I am going to learn everything about you. And if you do not change and modify your behavior, then I'm going to use everything that I learned to destroy you. So like literally at this point, the choice is yours to make. And that's what I've been telling conservatives lately. The choice is yours. And I would have Tea Party activists. I would have Tea Party activists remember, you were a vibrant movement until they picked Mitt Romney and they told you Mitt Romney was the best that they had to
get
offer.
On board.
And if you wouldn't,
get on board.
And if you could not support Mitt Romney and back Mitt Romney, then you were going to be the reason that this whole country failed. That is how they treated these people. That is the threats that they made these people. This is how they shamed these people. They got their candidate and they still freaking lost. So what I would say to conservatives and Republicans is, while you're so targeted in on making sure you know the problems that are prevalent and persistent in the Black community, because I'm not saying that there are none, but before you focus on that, you might want to look at this abusive relationship that you have with the Republican Party, because my last 10 years of watching y'all romantically dance this dance is showing me that there is something toxic there that desperately needs to be healed.
So here's a question. I mean, you guys came up in the Tea Party movement, and that was a response to the establishment, like you just said. You know, MAGA is the same thing. America First as well. It's a response to the establishment. What are the differences that you see between the Tea Party era and the America First era?
Organization,
and also, but the Tea Party era was really galvanized around an idea, right? An idea that we're overburdened. We're overburdened
and
with
held
regulation.
and both parties were held accountable.
And both, and Tea Party movement started out as bipartisan, actually, because there was a lot of people who didn't really want universal health care, saw it coming down the pike with Obamacare, and it eventually split off into a more partisan movement, but it originally started out that way. But MAGA is really personality-centric, so it was really centered around, it galvanized around Donald Trump. I think the roots of it and the roots of it and the structure of it came from the Tea Party people, right? Like Sonny just put it perfectly, how we felt like we were outsiders. And then we went through 8 years of Obama where he told us all that we were outsiders every day and made everyone feel like they had to apologize for things that they weren't really involved in. And they didn't understand why they didn't have their voice. And then this guy came along. So we endured the Mitt Romney debacle, right? No one was speaking for the Tea Party conservative or the grassroots conservatives. We endured that. And then by the time Obama era rolled to an end, it was like, we're ready to have somebody who's going to speak for us. Mitt Romney didn't do that. He was just a nice guy on the stage. And, you know, maybe he would go and hold the White House for Republicans for 8 years, and that'd be great. And this guy came along, kind of blew it all up. So I see MAGA as personality centric. Now, the challenge for us moving forward, and by the way, I'm not one of those people that says that's actually a bad thing. I don't believe in the cult of personality. I don't believe in worshiping anybody, but I do understand the power of a leader. Obviously, even where you work, you have to have a leader in your workplace. At your daycare center, there's got to be a leader there. People galvanize around personality. There's nothing wrong with that. That's human nature. It's when that turns to idolizing or worship that it's a problem. But now the challenge is, where does MAGA go from here? is there a way for us to capitalize on the passion of that movement and the pushback? Like, people are a lot bolder than ever before without sliding into, this base name calling and bad orange man and all of that. So, and I don't know how we get there or where it's going from here. My personal thought is that 2024 is going to be a rout for Republicans, and probably the next guy that comes along is going to be even worse than Trump because they pushed so many people so far to the right. Trump was a response to 8 years of Obama and a Mitt Romney. So after 4 years of what's going on now, we're only a few months into this Biden administration, and it's crazy. I think the next guy is going to be even crazier, but it's different, but it was more like the grassroots. I think Sonny's right. It's more like the grassroots getting organized, and I would add galvanized.
Okay.
I would say any problem that you're looking at in politics, you should look at how to reverse engineer. And the only way you can reverse engineer is understanding how we got here. So if you don't understand how you kind of got to that point, then you're not going to understand what to do next. So all of us kind of look at the Republican establishment, and if you give us one singular target, they would be our target. But it's kind of hard to hit that moving target because there's so many of them in so many different places in so many arenas. But we can look at their idea, especially when it pertains to what they saw as threatening about Trump. All right. So what did they see threatening about Trump? What they saw threatening about Trump is that they had created this messaging. The talking points, the stereotypes, all of the things that we hate, they had created this messaging, right? And we ask ourselves, why did they create this messaging? For us that are talking about Black issues, we will look at it and say, they created their Black messaging so they never have to talk about us, right? So anytime the subject is brought up, you say you're colorblind. Anytime the subject is brought up, you quote Martin Luther King Jr. Anytime the subject is brought up, you say, well, Democrats started racism. They're the one. You know what I'm saying? Right. You get defensive. Right. So that's what they set up. That's all of their messaging. Their messaging was put into place that you never had to talk about us. You didn't have to learn our history. You did not have to show any kind of respect for our culture. You didn't have to even look at our faith and how we carry our faith outside of the statistics in your voting packet. You know, Black people are this much go to church, so we should be able to win them on. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's all we get boiled down to, is that statistic. And that was their message to us. So Trump comes along and he removes the cap. Now your messaging is off, it's skewed. Well, actually, it's not, because this formula was done to every other issue. When it came to trade, he removed the cap. He got rid of the old talking points, old stereotypes, said, no, we're doing it different. When it comes to immigration, he removed the cap. Nope, all that stuff is gone. We're going to do it different. When it comes to foreign policy, nope, we're going to do it different. So every single category he did differently. What is the only category where the stereotypes and the talking points never changed, where the cap was never removed, where the same shit was repeated over and over and over and over again? And what was the one name he was called most above all?
Right.
So maybe if he had blown that damn cap off, got rid of them stereotypes and them talking points like he had done on every other issue, we wouldn't be asking, what is the future of MAGA? It would have been solidified by people who actually want to organize. People
I
who
think
don't
I'm
who don't say Blexit, but
disagree.
say take over. People who
Yes.
have a mode to actually do something and become a part of the solution.
I'm going to push back on you just a little bit on that, because I think you're making a lot of sense. This is exactly it. I think Trump did try to do that. I think what Trump came up against is what he eventually came up against with everything, which is the establishment. So the establishment gave him his advisors.
Then
the establishment
I
gave him
could
his.
say that if someone didn't go to the White House and tell him differently. So
Yeah, but
I would
get
give
that,
you that.
But the idea that Trump just could have snapped his fingers and put anybody in there, I don't think we realized exactly what was going on there. Already when he was in his advisor circle. So already he, like you just said, he blew
no. But yes, you could have. He started with Omarosa, right? So
right.
So, like, let's not pretend this shit was done in good faith. He started with Omarosa because she said nice things. It was nothing qualifier or anything knowledgeable or any kind of connectivity. It wasn't anything that would operate in the arena of a meritocracy. It was nothing that would actually be judged on merit. It was, she kissed your ass and she said nice things. And so she got in that position.
And he paid the price for that.
From that position, she made sure to shut other Black people out. I wish those people would be brave enough to talk and not be so scared that they will never get employed again if they tell their damn stories, but they're not all me.
Well, this is the other thing we're up against. And not to totally change the subject, but I do think they're related. But this is the other thing we're up against, right? The idea that, you know what, there's a lot of different experiences out there. There's a lot of Black people out there who could, quote, blow the whistle on things that go on in the Republican Party, or jobs that they've lost, or
and why they've
positions
lost them.
They've been pushed out of, and why. But they don't, because there is this fear. It's same in the punditry class. It's the very same in the punditry class. Exactly the same. They don't do it because there is this, because the establishment is there, because the establishment has said, this is the path to success in this party, not whatever you're saying, but you've got to play the game. You've got to hit all the talking points. You've got to do this. And then when you pay your dues, then you can come alongside and we'll throw you a few crumbs, but just a few of you, because we can't have too many of you, because we want the Republican Party to be pro-Black, but we don't want the Republican Party to be Black. That wouldn't be great.
That would undo what the Lily Whites did for us in the beginning. We don't want to go backwards and reverse engineer shit that we already got in place that works. And this is the conversation you get. But
this is what I heard when I wrote my The Trouble with Candace piece, and I got all kinds of messages from Black conservatives across the spectrum, DMs. Thank you for saying this. I can't really say this out loud. I don't
even respond to those people.
It's high time somebody said it, and thank God you did. And I'm like,
I don't even respond to those people.
Why? Why do I have to be the one?
I'm kind of with Sunny on this one, honestly. I know the reason, but I'll let her say it.
I don't even respond, because those people don't want me in. You know what I'm saying? They don't want me in. They just want me to clear the riffraff they can't get out of their way. And then as soon as that riffraff is removed, then they want to go back in and solidify their spot as the good token Negro. So it's not about changing shit, because if that's what it was about, you would have done it.
You all would speak it up.
You would not wait for me to go and burn some shit down before you come in and actually try to do something. But with that being said, a lot of things happen that I would say give people legitimate reasons to walk away. Like, if I did not know this was my God purpose, then some of the things that I have seen, like Kira, would change the game. Some of the things that we have been through, like, I would not still be here. It's a reason.
I was telling my producer just yesterday, we were texting back and forth because I made the mistake of getting into it on Twitter. Jeff and I talked about this on Red and Black. Where I made the mistake of getting into it with the Hodge twins. Never heard of them before, and all of a sudden, all their fans are in my timeline, and I'm texting my. I'm watching.
Oh, what was that? Them defending Crowder?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, and anyways, it was stupid. It was dumb. I let it go on way too long. I should have ignored them. I didn't know who I was talking to. I thought that they were like intelligent guys who were having a conversation. And then I know Jeff was like, what? I didn't know who they were. So when I figured it out though, I was like, okay, thanks for playing. Bye-bye. But what the litany of insults from white conservatives I was getting, including liberal, which is hilarious. Like people are like I'm gonna be like, oh, he called me a liberal, I'm so upset. But I was texting my producer and I'm like, you know what, there are days, and I know a lot of people would be surprised to hear this coming out of my mouth because I talk a lot about grace, but it doesn't mean that I don't get frustrated either. And there are days where I think if I wasn't really a conservative and I didn't know Jesus, I would throw up the middle finger to almost all of these people and walk away. It's a good thing that I'm a conservative because I believe the principles work. And that's why a lot of people leave conservatism to some of the more controversial people. They weren't ever really conservatives. They liked some of the attention. And so when the winds shifted, they didn't have the temerity or the strength of character to withstand that. And that's fine. And for me, but for me, I get it. And there are times when it's like, I don't need you to fully understand this. There's just some things you're not going to get. And I get that because it's cultural.
Right.
There's some things about Asian culture I don't understand. Some things about Mexican culture I don't understand. It's just cultural. That's fine. But I at least need you to be able to say, and some people were saying this, I don't get this. I disagree with you. I don't really think you're right here, but you know, it's another side to the story and I appreciate that. But that's not what was happening. Like as soon as I was like, hey, you know what? If there were more black people in Crowder's room, this joke doesn't fly. This joke doesn't go through. This is why conservatives need to be more deliberate about hiring black people and women. They hated that one.
But this is the thing. They could fill that room with black faces. And those jokes would still go over because they know which black people they can fuck with and which ones not to play.
That's what the response was. So that's when the Hodge twins came up. And then this guy, the quarter black guy, which I thought they were pulling my leg on, but they weren't. They actually threw him in. They were like, Kira, how dare you? There was a black person in the room. And here he is. He's a quarter black. And
He's a quarter of a black person.
I thought they were joking. I treated it like it was a joke the whole time. It wasn't until Red and Black yesterday when Jeff explained to me that no, they weren't joking, Kira. That was the diversity that people were throwing back at me. Now you're right that you can fill the room up with the right black people, but there still needs to be a recognition that a lot of the stuff that happens in conservative circles happens in bubbles. And if you don't diversify that bubble, once you're talking to somebody long enough, y'all sound right all the time. You know, there's nobody else in Steven Crowder's studio. There's nobody else in, you know, whatever the Newsmax studio or whatever. There's nobody sitting in the writer's room at the Daily Wire that is representing people that live outside their bubble. So it can be really easy for people to assume, oh, what we're saying is funny. What we're saying is fine. Nobody will be offended by this. We're just telling the truth or we're just having some fun. But it's like conservatives don't understand that one of the reasons why I get asked this question all the time. And I did a JLTY on this about, it's called the black vote. Conservatives ask me all the time. I know they ask you guys too. Yep. Why can't we get black people to vote for us? We're conservative. Black people are conservative. They go to church. We go to church. What's your messaging? What messages are you sending to black people? I'm sorry, but I'm not going. I get it that you love you know who, but me and her are not walking up into Gary, Indiana, and she's walking out with a bunch of people to the Conservative Party. When she speaks, they're not hearing, I want to know what you think. When she speaks, what they're hearing is your experience doesn't count. You've seen it all wrong. You got this all wrong. Once you see things the right way, come on over. And that's easy to do when we don't diversify our thought, our leadership, the writers in our creative spaces, the TV hosts, the YouTube hosts. All of that stuff makes a difference in the culture of conservatism.
Like, my thing is, we have to, okay, so here's the thing. If you call someone a name enough times, they can start to believe that they are what you're calling them. And I think for maybe a lot of white Republicans and conservatives that have been called racist or white supremacist for a prolonged period of time, they believe it now. So they believe they are intellectually superior. They believe that they are culturally superior. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you program that enough into someone's brain, even if they don't realize it, they start to live out what you're telling them. So,
but I think that's mostly white people. I think that's most white people in America, because even Hollywood does that. Even the left does that.
But I'm specifically talking about white conservatives in this case because we're talking about Crowder. But when I look at that, do I think that it's funny? No. Do I think that it's racist? No, because I am not going to give superiority to inferior thought. I'm just not going to do it. And we need to start making that distinction when we're talking about these things. There is a legitimate difference between systemic racism, because I believe in systemic racism. I do not believe in this BS name calling identity politics. I don't believe in that. And that's what this is. So I'm not going to do this, you know what I'm saying, with you. But since I do believe in systemic racism and the effects that it has had on Black America, what I saw in that clip is ignorance. Right. And I will make this point, because this is why I was specifically talking about white conservatives and Republicans. When I got into the Tea Party movement, one of the first people to kind of grab me and pull me in was Andrew Breitbart. At the time, Andrew's biggest research project was Pickford. Pickford was the settlement pushed through Congress to reimburse Black farmers for the land that had been stolen from them during the time of the New Deal. But the Democrats had so put bureaucracy and garbage and nonsense on top of those funds that the people who had actually suffered grievances were paid pennies on the dollar and were not being able to recoup the land that they lost. So actually, it was a net zero benefit. You know what I'm saying? That's what Andrew was working on when I met Andrew. That's what he was doing when I was like, okay, this is the type of person that I can see myself rocking with, because he wants to know. He wants to learn. He wants to study. It's not good enough for a subject to be brought up and just an assumption to be made. No, I need to know the backstory. I need to know the historical relevance. I need to know the context. That's what I respected about Andrew. So when you are picking your surrogates, when you are picking your mouthpieces, don't forget why so many of us supported Andrew when we look at y'all like aliens. Because there's a difference between you walking around with an elevated sense of your own ego that could be easily crushed by anyone who actually reads a book, and someone who actually wants to be engaged in these conversations and actually bring them to the forefront and push them to the main sphere of conversation. There is a huge difference. We respect the people like Andrew. Don't ask us to respect people like this. And don't ask us to call it superiority when it is nothing more than inferior thinking at its lowest hanging fruit point.
So here's a question, and because I recently did a video where I was talking about the Steven Crowder clip, but I also took the time to educate my audience on what this whole black farmer thing was in the first place. And I went over the history of it. I went over the history of the discrimination and the fact that the USDA in that Pickford case actually admitted that they discriminated. And I know, I mean, I saw the Fox News reports on it and they left that stuff out. So Andrew Breitbart was willing to dig and look into this stuff. And now we don't have anybody like that anymore, and we don't have anybody who's willing to dig in. And at least, you know, if you're going to disagree with it, I would rather you know what you're disagreeing with. What changed? What happened?
You know, I think those people are still out there. The difference between now and then is that then there wasn't a lot of other noise. It was Andrew. That's all there was Andrew. Mm-hmm. Conservative alternative media was brand new. In the blogosphere, there was Breitbart, and The Blaze was just getting started at the time. And then a lot of us were just doing individual blogging. So Andrew was a firebrand. He was one of those people who really, he attracted attention. He knew how to wield the media. He knew how to dig into a subject, but also force the media to cover something. Now what we have is so many competing voices in the newsfotainment space on the conservative side that if Andrew Breitbart hadn't been the person to start this whole movement and he came into the sphere now, I don't think we would be talking about this story the same way. I don't think he would have been able to rise above a lot of the noise. But just like everything else, you know, the conservative newsfotainment sphere got corporatized. And that's the downside of getting paid for your work. We all couldn't wait to get paid for our work, but when you get paid for your work, you get paid by a company. So there's a lot of other people in this space who now are kind of the quote loudest voices, but they're just really corporatized newsfotainment people. And there are plenty of people like Andrew who do the work, who do the legwork. There's a lot of good investigating happening at Reason.com and at Free Beacon. Even over at Breitbart, one of my favorite people is Brandon Darby. He's reporting on the border. Like his border reporting is unassailable. That guy has been doing this for years. And if you want an authority on the subject, that's the guy you want. He happens to write for Breitbart, but he could be writing anywhere if people weren't so, you know, asshole-ish about your past and where you've been. So those people are out there, but I guess the downside of what Andrew did for all of us is that it expanded the space so much. It just got really noisy. And unfortunately, it's not very sexy to dig in and get all the information and get all the facts and the truth and break a story like that. That's not sexy. What's sexy is a 2-minute soundbite that's going to cause all of us to jabber.
And so let's just say we all know that that's the case and that's what we're walking into. We also know that that's why white conservatives right now are so easily triggered, why they're so sheepish in being able to see when they're baited, being able to see when they're being manipulated. So in my sense of saying is, you're conditioned, right? You've been trained properly to act like good little conservative sheep that don't speak too loudly. You know what I'm saying? So I figure, hey, won't I give you an example of what it looks like when you're loud? Let me give you an example of what it looks like when you're unapologetic. Let me give you an example of what it looks like when you're principled. Let me give you an example of this because obviously that example has been missing for you. You know what I'm saying? And is the conversation going to be sexy? No, the conversation isn't going to be sexy. But let me tell you what it is going to be. It's going to be the conversation that stops you from being triggered. It's going to be the conversation that stops you from immediately reacting instead of stopping and actually listening to what is being said to you. It is going to give you the historical context that when a Democrat tries to lie to you about how exactly systemic racism got into the system, you're able to say, no, let me stop for you for a minute. Let me tell you some Black history because you actually know the damn history. What it will give you is you will be able to talk to your children about conservative principles without feeling like you are ostracized into some group that they don't want to have anything to do with. No, you would actually be able to have legitimate conversations with your children about real history, about real context. So when the left tries to indoctrinate them, your child can stand strong. See, none of these things are sexy, but no one ever said conservatism was fun. We didn't say it was sexy. We didn't say it snuck into your bed at night and kept you warm. That's not what we said. We said that it works. We said that once you apply the principles, you will be able to say you are satisfied with the results. But it also sucks because sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to go without. And sometimes you have to read a book. And sometimes you have to learn from other people. And sometimes you have to admit what you do not know and be willing to change your opinion when you are given new information. So,
and I think that's really
the thing about conservatism that people don't want to latch on to. It's not sexy, but
that's right. It's not sexy, and that's what we're working, and that's what people like you and I work against in our sphere. I am the like. Sunny's on the level 10 version of what she just said, and I'm like the level 6 version of what she just said. But it's exactly what I do on JLTY. This is exactly what I do, which is breaking down talking points so that you don't have to feel so defensive all the time. When you know that you're hearing something that doesn't match up with who you are as a person or what you believe, you don't have to resort to, I'm not a racist or this, or, you don't have to feel, as Sunny said, triggered. You can draw on that well of knowledge because you've thought through your talking points. You know exactly where the logic ends out, and you don't have to feel tense and nervous and like, oh, I've got to get my point across. You don't have to feel that because you feel confident in what you believe. But to me, and maybe I'm bringing this up because this is the headspace I'm in this last few weeks for some reason. But to me, when I say that those things aren't sexy, what I mean is to a paying audience. and when it comes to what messages get out, it's the messages that establishment people are going to be willing to sponsor. So there's a lot of conservatives out there who are only getting the sponsored messaging and not seeing the messaging that's at a deeper level that are the people like you're talking about.
The messaging that gets spread is the messaging that Democrats can use against Republicans. That's the messaging that gets spread. So what happens is if someone on the right says some offensive shit and a Democrat picks it up, that's when it becomes viral, because the left spreads it as a way of saying, look at how bad the Republicans are.
Right.
And the Republicans get defensive and they attack back and like basically prove Democrats right by the stuff that they say. You know what I'm saying? But
that's all they want to sponsor is my point. That's all they want to put on because you spitting fire on this podcast right now and saying some very deep things, that's not a soundbite that you can cut up and make viral, because all of this is what's driving me crazy the last. All of this is us doing this. It's this big circle. The establishment infotainment circus on the right puts out a clip that appeals to a very broad audience of people, but doesn't require people to really dig into a topic or think. Democrats take it, say, look how offensive this is. It goes viral. And then the Republican response is a viral response as well. And that's the game. That is the game. And that is what we're up against when it comes to messaging. And that's why we're begging people, don't think of it when we're telling you that there need to be other voices and other avenues, and you need to be deliberate about having different types of voices in the room. We're not saying it because we're jealous. We're not saying it because we want a piece of this corporate pie. What we're saying is the messaging is all wrong. We believe in the principles of conservatism, and this ain't it. This ain't cutting it.
So why do you think that so many white and black conservatives, why do you think that they're so resistant? Because I get a lot of resistance. I get a lot of open-minded people too, but there's just so much resistance to when we say things like, this messaging hasn't worked for 60, 70, 80 years. We need to try something new. This isn't working. The talking points are inaccurate. They're deceptive. Why do you think that there is such a visceral, emotional pushback to that?
I just say this is how we prove that white supremacy doesn't exist, because you sound very dumb. And that needs to, but that needs to permeate, because they actually believe that they are smart. And if you start to delve into history with them, they will realize that they are not. And then once you break that ego part of them, that's when you get, well, why does it matter? So you go to defending the Confederate statues because all history matters. But as soon as I trap you in your ignorance about not knowing Black history, now all of a sudden, not all history matters.
A Black national anthem, perfect example.
Some history matters, right? So, and it goes to what Democrats teach, the 1619 version of American history, and what Republicans teach, the 1776 version of American history. Both of them are bastardized versions of American history. So neither one of you is standing from any moral high ground trying to give your deviated versions of said histories. And the best thing that we can do as Americans is tell American history, the truth, what it is, good and bad, all of it. You can love your country while knowing her. My marriage is great because my husband knows everything about me, good and bad. I would not call it love if all he knew was the good shit. And if he didn't know what it's like with me at my worst, then could I call that love? And that's how we need to start looking at our relationship with America. If you have to remove the good to think about America, there's a problem with you. If you have to remove the bad to think about America, there's a problem with you. Only when enough of us loves America for what she is, her scars and all, will we be able to save her and protect her and defend her like she needs to be saved, protected, and defended. But as long as you continue to play this game where you want to choose what's relative to your ego, then America is not defended. And if that is your solemn goal, then you are failing. And I don't care how many scalps you claim, how many, Twitter fights you win, or any of that nonsense.
Twitter fights are very important.
You're not doing the work. You're not being that generation that needs to stand up in its time to do its job to make sure the idea we believe in maintains itself. So if that's not what you're working towards, then what the hell are you doing?
I'm going to interrupt Sunny here, and I'm going to give the exact same answer that Sunny just gave, but in the Kira way. And so that you asked why people get so defensive and push back. And I think it is because so many conservatives, white conservatives, for so long have been told that they are racist for no other reason than just how they look. They've been asked to bear the burden of things that they have nothing to do with and never would have anything to do with. And so many of them have been have felt so accused for so long that when actual instances of racism do come up, just to mention the word racism feels like an accusation for white people. And so that is the flip side of what Sunny is saying about ego, right? This is where this ego comes in already, because I'm giving you this alternative point of view, or this point of view that didn't fit into this box that you thought I was going to fit into. Already you're like, well, you're calling me a racist. And then every argument comes from that position. So until we can help conservatives realize, like, you don't have to start, which is why I do JLTY. You don't have to start from the defensive position. When you start from the defensive position, you can't hear all of the facts. You can't hear the nuances of an argument. Right. You can't hear the things that will help you expand your point of view. We may never come to a point where we agree on this, that, or the other. That's fine. I did a JLTY about this. We don't need unity. Forget unity. What we need is tolerance. Unity is a pipe dream. Tolerance is where we'll get to a point where we can live peacefully with each other. And one of the things we need for tolerance is to be able to say, I haven't looked at it from that point of view yet. And I am not going to accept the accusations that have come, but I don't have to fight them. I can combat those accusations by being educated, by knowing what I believe, and by also knowing that there's more than one side to this story. That there isn't actually and it, again, this is just what Sunny said, that it's not 1619 or 1776, that there is this whole world in between. And America is an amazing country, and it's filled with incredible stories of overcoming, but you can't tell the stories of overcoming if you can't tell the story of what people have overcome or are overcoming. So I always try to impart that to my listeners on JLTY. I want people to say, it's not that I want you to feel accused. I get that you feel accused. I understand that. I really do. But you need to try to let that ego part go so you can hear what the people who are on, quote, your side are saying, so that we get better at this message, because I truly do believe that conservative principles are what's good for all of America, but particularly, and this is my journey, this is why I'm a conservative, particularly for Black America. That's when I became a conservative, is when I was serving in the Black community and serving people around me. And that was when I realized, all of these policies I supported my whole life and thought worked, they don't work. So what now? And it's those little revelations that we've got to give people the freedom to experience. But one of the things we have to help people do, or this is how I see what I do, is to let go of the part of them that is afraid to see something that they haven't seen before, and afraid to admit that they had mistakenly judged X, Y, or Z, and move forward from that.
Kara gonna be nice, because I'm gonna trigger your ass.
Yeah.
I told you. I sent somebody over to your podcast once. I sent one of my listeners over to your podcast once, and they came back and they were like, "Ooh, that was rough."
They were crying.
No,
like a hit dog.
No, this is the problem, right? When they look at Black America, they will say, okay, Democrats they push the bigotry of low expectations on Black America, and that's why everything is so bad in Black America, because of the bigotry of low expectations. So you know what I'm not gonna do? I'm not going to be a bigot of low expectations and think your grown ass can't think this through. That's not what I'm going to do, okay? I am not going to be a bigot of low expectations and think that you can't read a damn book. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I am not going to be a bigot of low expectation and think that if I don't temper myself and put my voice at the right pitch and say it in the right tone, that no, I'm not doing that. You are a damn adult, okay? You should be able to take actual facts, actual historical context, and actually be able to rationally, critically think these things through to come to a point where you reach a solution.
Everyone can hear, Sunny. Not everybody wants to be yelled at, Sunny, and it's okay to say that. This can be a multi-pronged approach.
That's why I love you.
That's why
I love you.
And that's why we have Kira. You're not going to come to I'm not going to talk to you like that on my show.
Oh,
I'm not.
You will catch it.
That's what I tell people.
Catch it on my show.
Sunny. The way that Sunny tells people, if you want graciousness and people to be nice to you, you go to Kira. And I say, if you want to hear it stripped down without, all of the grace and the niceties, you go to Sunny. But both are valid, and this is what I think. If I could just bring this full circle to how we first started talking, if I had a wish, if I had a magic wand and I could get the Republican Party and the conservative movement to understand anything, it's that all of these voices are needed, that it is not one or the other, that there are, and they seem to have that type of grace for non-Black conservatives in the entertainment sphere. We'll have all kinds of different people there, but it seems like it's got to be so limited. It's not that It's not that when Sunny is hollering at you that she's saying I hate you, that she's saying I'm a closet liberal. What she's challenging you. Why aren't we allowed to challenge you?
Wait, but Sunny's in the critical race theory. You didn't know that?
But let's not pretend.
Oh Lord! Oh please!
Let's not pretend that I didn't try to play along. Like this is the thing. Like I tried to play y'all game. Like I tried to fit in. I bought the pantsuits and like the shit that I never wear. Like I did this. I put in the effort to
but
try.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't me. And like that was the thing that I had to come to understand. Like it is nothing wrong with me.
No.
It is nothing wrong with my conservative principles. It is nothing wrong with my historical. It is nothing wrong with me. And that's why I refuse to play that bigotry of low expectations. Like I am not going to kid coddle you. I am not going to do that. I am not going to play like I am your parent and raise you. Like I am not going to tell you telling me, well, they did it first. That is not an adequate response. If you were my child, I would whip your ass. Like, don't come to me like that.
Why are you yelling at me?
That is a valid excuse.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because I can. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Sunny's about to bring out the switch.
No, but
listen,
that is not an adult way to respond. So what is more detrimental, the fact that I yell or the fact that you're ignorant? And I'm pretty much thinking your ignorance is going to trump the tenor of my voice every single time. And again, why do I keep saying it in that way? Because maybe you've been told that you are actually superior so long that you believe it. And if someone actually makes you question that, then you will start to think about what else you need to question.
And then my approach is that I want to give people the space. And my approach is I want to give people the space to ask the very uncomfortable questions without feeling judged or without feeling like, I'm not accusing you of anything, Sunny. As we've said, this is your style and this is my side. But okay. But like, I want to create a space where people can say things that will feel offensive to other people that could get them shut down. And I want to give them the space to say that because I truly believe you can't respond to a good idea that you can't hear. So I never want to not hear people's bad ideas. And sometimes that means being kind when I want to be more forceful. Sometimes that means offering grace when I want to be, when I want to holler at somebody. But both sides of there are some people that come to me and take my attitude as permission to be ignorant and to do whatever I want. That's when those people got to go to Sunny.
Yeah.
Like
if I can make an observation real quick.
On Sunny's Corner, we have a lot of those racial discussions where white people will call in and they will, I'm a white man and I grew up this way and blah, blah, blah. And I give them the freedom to do that. So that is not the areas where I'm like, oh, you're ignorant. That's not when I do that. I do that when you come in and you're like, you're talking to stereotypes and you're talking to talking points. If black men cared about their kids and no, hold the fuck up. You about to catch it because you are not coming to me with a respectable idea. You are not coming to me with a principle. You are not coming to me with anything of intelligence. You are coming to me as an asshole and I return energy. So if that is what you brought to me, then I am going to return it. And then the very next caller will be someone with great energy and I'll give them great energy. I'm not going to bring that old call in to this new person that I'm talking to. So yet again, it is about what we should be expecting from people who claim to be adults, how they carry themselves and how they handle themselves. And if we are at the point where we're like, you're not even acting like adults. Like, can we, You're not even acting like adults. So how are you going to set an example for conservative youth coming up after you? How are you going to set an example for people that are like, maybe I will listen, and oh, but wait, they're just like this, right? And this is honestly how I feel. You can't tell me that Cardi B upsets your Christian values while you are simultaneously laughing at Joe Biden falling up the stairs. Like, how can you tell me that to my face and expect me to look at you and take you seriously? Like, those two things don't compute. So if you're going to have this sensibility about you to say that this looks like a moral situation that I don't want to be a part of, when you see an elderly man tripping up the stairs, can barely walk, that should be one of the situations that kind of requires that same amount of grace. You know what I'm saying? That's it. You want to talk about Joe Biden policies? Good. What happened with China? Fucked up. What happened with Russia? Go ahead, go off. But what we saw today is a man in mental decline. And as Christians, can you really just sit and laugh at that without praying for that man, and not just praying for him, for the entire country that he is now president of? So where this morality line is drawn, I don't understand it. Like, how it's placed, where its metrics lie, it does not make sense to me, because it is not based off of any principle. It's not based off of any set of morality. It's forever changing. It's always shifting. And this is how you conserve nothing. You conserve nothing because you don't know what you believe in. And nobody has ever stopped and made you actually define what you believe in. And that is the problem with a lot of conservatives and Republicans. Like, if you ask them, well, what does it mean to be a conservative? And their first answer is law and order. Huh? Really? Is it? Because I thought it was limited government.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take this chance, Jeff, to pop in because Sonny just sold my show. This is exactly what we do. I just listen to yourself with Kira Davis every week. This is exactly what we do. We break down these talking points. Know what you believe. There's a lot of people who are just responding in defensiveness instead of responding on the offense. If someone asks me why I'm a conservative, I can rattle it off like that. I can remember being on a show with Mark Lamont Hill forever ago when he was HuffPost Live was one of the first streaming services a long time ago, and they only ever asked me on there to be the quote Black Republican, and it was always just a show of like, tell us why you're so awful, Kira. You know, that's all it ever was. Yeah. Eventually, I stopped doing the show because that's all it ever was. But this one day, I was still so new, so I never really wanted to like be too feisty or push back. I just wasn't sure about that. But this one day I was just getting ganged up on and I was so sick of it. And I'm like, you know what? All you people want to know is, why am I a Republican when Republicans are so racist? But I'm not a Republican. I'm a conservative, and I'm a conservative because I look around me and I see that the Black community has been voting in lockstep the same way for 60 years and nothing's changed for us. We're still making the same complaints. We're still asking for the same concessions from the party that we have created our fealty to. We don't have any political capital in the Republican Party. So whenever they get into power, we freak out because we don't have any political capital there. And we view them as hostile to us. And I believe that lower taxes, school choice, a strong nuclear family, the idea of bringing back education and jobs to the Black community, treating them as equal partners in the American experience, that is the way to prosperity for every single American, particularly the Black community. I can say that anytime somebody asks me. And Mark Lamont Hill was like, well, dang, for a second there, I almost thought I was a conservative. Do you know what I mean? That guy is so far left, but when you can properly articulate why you have these beliefs, why you stand behind this instead of, well, this is my family was always this, or I just hate the lib. I'm like Jeff says, I'm going to own the libs or whatever. But when you can properly articulate conservatism, it sells. It sells because it sounds good.
Before I even knew the difference between a conservative and a progressive, or a Democrat and a Republican, or anything politically, really, all I did was focus on what I thought would be best for the Black community. So if you want to know where my spike came from, even though I would say I was conservative my entire life, it was just how I was raised. But when I actually start to place where my thought process and pattern came from outside of my home, I'm a hip hop because of Outkast. You know, Outkast told me get up, get out, and get something, because we have to do for ourselves. I'm a conservative because of Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? If there ain't no manicures on board, then switch your planes. It's time for us to change up how we're looking at this, how we look at money, how we look at spending it, how we look at investing it. I look at people like 50, people like Puffy, people like them that came from where we came from with nothing but a penny for their thoughts, and to be able to make it where they are. And once they get there, their message back to us is buy, own, diversify, equity. So if you want to know why I'm a conservative, blame the culture, blame hip hop, because it told me I can take what I want and not wait for somebody else to give it to me. It told me that if you're in a situation where someone thinks that they're better or that they can win, then you step up and you show them that they're wrong. It fed me the spirit of what has been handed to me is not what I'm going to accept. I'm going to accept what I build. And what that looks like is not me waiting for my slice of the American pie. It's me realizing that I can bake my own damn pie. And it can be any flavor that I want it to be. And it could be at any temperature that I want it to be. And it can have any crust that I want it to have. Like, these are my decisions for my pie. That is what hip hop told me. So now you want to tell me not to listen to those lessons.
This is my favorite Sonny Johnson lesson, and I repeat it all the time, especially when people ask me, why don't Black people vote Republican more? Well, I always say the Republican Party does not appeal to what are very normal Black values, and one is capitalism. Like, Black people are capitalists, but there's a reason why we say you're working like a Jamaican, because Black people have side gigs all day long.
You cannot have a conversation about Black economics on the right. You cannot have a conversation about Black economics on the right. You can have a conversation about Black problems on the right. Mm-hmm. You can have a conversation about Black violence on the right. You can have a conversation about anything negative about Black people. You can have that conversation on the right. The minute you say Black entrepreneurship, Black equity, Black ownership, Black banks, Black Wall Street, the minute you say anything in relation to something positive economically that has to do with Black America, the right.
Why are you segregating? Why are you segregating? Well, I'm colorblind.
Yeah, they forget what segregation is. They act like they don't even know what segregation means whenever you bring that up. So I mean, in that vein, though, I mean, you guys have both been talking about these things for a long time with white and Black conservatives. My question is, you know, after doing it for so long and continuing to do it today, do you feel like, I mean, you're getting through it all, or do you feel like there's still a lot more work to be done, or where do you figure that we are on the scale from, you know, back when you first started until now, as far as changing enough minds on the right?
I mean, it depends on what day you catch me. You know, a lot of days, some days I do feel like I look at where we were 10 years ago or 12 years ago when Sunny and I first met, or whenever that was, another lifetime ago. But I look back then and I definitely see that the landscape has changed. There's definitely more room for our voices, but not as much as I would like. And some days I look at what I'm doing. My podcast was the fastest growing podcast on Spotify last year. And it's just a podcast where I do parse out these ideas. And I realize, okay, it makes me feel good to know that people are hungry for this and there's an audience for it, that they're responding to it. So in that respect, okay, I do see things changing. But then sometimes I look at like the established conservative bigwigs, the big players in this game who have a lot of money and a lot of resources and could really help us message and help us get conversations like this into the mainstream where we can change minds. And to me, sometimes it seems it's business as usual. So some days I feel discouraged because I just feel like, well, we've forgotten what Andrew Breitbart, the passion that he told us, he told us to be happy warriors. But warriors is the key, like always pushing forward, always advancing. We've forgotten that and kind of settled into this thing of like, well, I'm making some money, so I'll just keep doing what the money. And by the way, I love money, so I'm not like trying to say anything bad about money. But some days I feel like we've sold out to the monetization of conservatism, and then those days I do feel discouraged. But when I get letters from my listeners, from JLTY and from the Red and Black Show, almost to a person, they are positive. They are people who are saying, I've changed how I thought about this. I've really looked and I apply this in other areas of my life now. Instead of being defensive, I ask questions. And so I have hope, but I don't know. It just depends on what they.
Right there. But we tell them on Sunny's Corner, as soon as you feel defensive, think of the first question you could ask. What's the first question you could ask?
Good. Yeah.
So you should become inquisitive instead of defensive.
Right.
And in that way you can walk them to your battlefield. So that's something we say on Sunny's Corner as well. But I'll say this because I think my opinion would be vastly different from other people's opinion because of how I got here. So for people who don't know or might not fully be aware, all of that stuff that you think that I'm jealous of, I was offered all of that stuff. Okay, the college tours, the news rotations, like all of that stuff that you think I want so badly and so desperately and so jealous of, all of those things were handed to me. If I wanted them, I would have had them. I said no, because like Kira said, I wasn't willing to monetize out what I knew was my message, what I knew was my core. But that took Ferguson for me to get to that place, because prior to Ferguson, I actually believed Republicans and conservatives when they said that they didn't care about color, that they only cared about character, that they would judge all. Like, I actually believe that to be true. And then when Ferguson happened and you saw all the Republican and conservative responses to that, I was like, they don't actually believe. They see color very clearly. Like, when they want to see color, they see color very, very clearly. So like Frederick Douglass said, if we don't deserve freedom, we don't deserve liberty, either practical liberty or actual liberty, if we stay quiet because we are so afraid to tell people we're Black. Like, we don't deserve freedom at that point. We'll never get it if that's where we back out, but we don't deserve it either, because we're not being truthful. We're not standing up at the moments when it's necessary for us to stand up. And I'm not talking about the white supremacy, the racism, the white guilt. I'm not talking about those conversations. I'm talking about legitimate circumstances where the state uses its power against its citizens. Those are the things systemically put, and especially a lot of these progressive areas, that Black people, when they are complaining about them, they are legitimate complaints. And if you cannot stop for 5 seconds and listen to your fellow American citizen tell you about the state's abuse of its power, notice I didn't put a race in there. The reason we have to insert race is because when it applies to us, all of a sudden y'all get amnesia about what conservatism means. So if you telling me you are a limited government advocate, but Ferguson rolls down and you don't see the problem with a government, executive government being used as a taxation force, then me and you are not the same. We are not talking about the same conservatism. You are talking about identity politics while I am talking about principles. So it's very, very hard to take these people seriously when they say they don't want to talk about race. But the moment that they can do it in a negative fashion, they run to make sure they are the first voices.
And people
there.
who say they don't want to talk about race are typically the people who can afford to not talk about race. You know, I don't get to, this is the thing I tell my listeners all the time. I understand when people say, I'm colorblind. I get that comes from a place of like, I just want you to know, I look at you as a human being. Great.
No, you don't.
No, I think some people do, and they just think that that's a nice thing to say. I think there are a lot of people that have talking points
that's
that
a
they've
red
never
flag
dropped.
to me. You could do that with Kira.
Okay. Don't do anything you do with me with Sunny. Trust me. But I do know that some people, this is why I do my show, because I know some people have not drawn out their talking points to their logical conclusion. So that is a talking point. It's a talking point that people have not thought to parse out. And I've spoken about this on my show a lot, that when Black people hear, I don't see race, a lot of times we hear, I don't see you, because we do speak the language of race. It means something to us. It's intimately tied to our culture, good or bad, right or wrong. It's just how it is. But I think a lot of people can't handle the idea or I think what a lot of people don't like is the idea that they do live in an area, in a position in this country where they don't have to think about race. You can say that. I none of us here can say when we walk out the door that our Blackness doesn't matter. I do not have that option. And it's fine. Like, I'm not dragging my feet and feeling all sad and bad about it every day. I'm fine with who I am. I love who I am. I love being Black. But it is a reality in my life, and it's something that faces me every day. And it's something that I consider when I'm raising my kids and where they're going to go to school. I'll tell you a story that my white friends don't have to deal with. My son is 18. He's technically in college, but he's been home for COVID. And when we were looking at colleges, he loves Asian culture. He is really, he took years of Mandarin in high school, and I thought, well, we'll send him abroad so he can teach English as a second language. A lot of my friends did that in high school. They went abroad, took a gap year, earned a lot of money, taught English as a second language because you don't need a degree. You just have to be American. You go in and you earn your money. They pay for all of your keep, and then you come home with a pocket full of money. Oh, maybe my son want to do that. So I started looking at English language schools where he could teach in Japan and South Korea, and to a person. Every requirement on there was, I mean, they were bold about it. No African Americans, no Black people. We do not accept Black teachers. We will not hire African American teachers. They want the typical, because they're selling an American experience. And in Asia, the American experience looks to them like blonde white people. They don't want that. See, even that little piece is different than my white friends. They have no idea that this is an obstacle that we might face. You wouldn't even think about it. But
Yeah, how could they know?
It is a consideration that we have to make. And so, of course, that shapes how I think about things and how I look at things. And of course, my life is different. And that's not bad. It's not bad to say that the Black experience is different than the white experience, or the conservative experience is different than the liberal experience. But it's something people say when they have the luxury of not having to make these considerations ever. But for Black people in America, it is something that you deal with every day when you walk out the door, good or bad.
So Kira gave you perspective about kind of the Black side of seeing it. And I'm just like, again, here we are with these bigotry of low expectations. The definition of colorblind is you only see in black and white. So like when you tell me you didn't even think through your talking point, you didn't even consider the word you used. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see the actual definition. And yes, there are degrees to where you can fall on the spectrum, but the definition is you only see in black and white. So what are you trying to tell me? And again, this is why it's always a red flag with me, because I'm like, when you say you have not thought through this, then how are you going to tell me you actually thought through what you think of my race? So what you didn't think through that. Stop lying to me. You didn't think through not using the word colorblind. So
that's why I like to help people think through their talking points, because we don't offer people that anymore.
Hold up, because here's the second one. And this is the part where it's like, we're all God's children. Well, God is the one that made us in different colors. So why do you want to erase that? So everything that you say about this stupid ass talking point has a one word answer to it. So like, how am I supposed to be like, oh, come, let me take you serious? Like, I'm not doing that anymore. I am tired. And then you walk away like, oh, it's so good that Sonny talked. No, I'm not playing this game. I'm not playing this game with you, because this is how you slow walk a conversation instead of setting a fire up under that ass. I want the fire. I'm not interested.
You know what, Sonny? Hang on.
No, I love you.
No, don't accuse me of slow walking the conversation. That is not what I'm doing. I'm having a different.
I just gave you the respect of not taking what you said personally against me, but you're doing that now like I said it about you.
Who are you talking to when you said the word you?
In general, white conservatives and Republicans.
Oh, you said you. I thought you were talking about me. You, Kira.
Come on. If it was,
why would you say that? That's all I'm doing.
If it was a direct back to you, then I would have definitely said this is where I disagree with you. You know what I'm saying? You know that. But like every single one of these talking points is so easily defeatable. So it's like, how are you going to, like, what are you doing to my intellect by making me have this conversation? That's what I want to get. Like, so intellectually, what am I getting out of this conversation? I'm not getting a perspective from you. I'm not getting an alternative view from you. I'm not getting revolutionary thought from you. Like, I'm not getting any of that. What do I get in this conversation? And
that's how I was with the Hodge twins the other day.
Yeah.
Right? So at the end of the conversation, it was like, oh, oops, there's nothing to be gained here.
Value, there's no depth.
For them, they got the clicks and the likes. That's what they got, which was,
and all of those things. But as we have seen with every single one of us that came, the people that came before us, how does it end? It does not end very nicely. So this is why I don't argue with them, because reality always plays itself. Reality always, like, I have learned this. God has shown me this so many different ways. If God did not give you that fight, don't go looking for it. And like, it goes the same with people who want like me to fight Candace and me to fight. God didn't give me that fight. Like if she would have showed up and God had gave it to me, then I would have handled it.
The
But
three
she ran.
times.
But she ran.
The three times.
Yeah.
So what is that? Is that telling me that I have to try harder? Or is that
don't
telling
get me started.
Is that telling me that God is saying reality is going to handle this? You need to do your work. See, and that's the difference. I'm very centric of understanding that my work does not go through them. It's not dependent on them. I don't have to beat them. What I have to do is make white conservatives and Republicans question what they have been taught enough that they are willing to listen to a different point of view. That's what I have to do. And so if that message is not going to take me through them and God doesn't set it up for it to be so, then that's not a fight that I'm looking for. If it presents itself and God puts it on the table, whew, y'all talk about a stout. But until God does that, I'm going to trust him enough to believe that the fights that he wants me to fight are the ones I'll show up to. And think about, like, he put me at the Apollo. He put me in the White House. You know, he put me on a CPAC stage when nobody else wanted me there. He put me back on Fox, even though they cut me. Like, everywhere where I wasn't supposed to be, God put me there because I was doing my work, not worrying about fights that didn't concern me. And a lot more people need to start
and not worrying about
themselves in their work, not the personality.
And not worrying about being who you think other people think you should be, which is a real pressure, right? It's a real pressure in the, and not everybody makes it out. Not everybody makes it out. And that's why I said at the top of the show, for me, meeting Sunny was like, oh, I have permission to be who I am because I have ideas. I'm not here for the money. Again, I love money. Please give it to me. Go find me at Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. My Cash App is at JLTY. But also,
I'm going to nominate you for a grifty.
Oh, Kira, yes. Let's give her a nomination.
I will grift for my money every now and then. If I have to grift on Jeff's show, fine, I will do it. Pay me. I love money. I don't want to pretend like money doesn't matter to me because I have bills to pay. We're capitalists. Thank you. But I learned long ago, around the time that I met Sunny and from watching her example, that if you try to be something you're not, it will kill your soul. And a lot of times when you see people in the media, and forget like black or white, just whoever you see, and you say to yourself, gosh, they've really changed from when they, when that person was on 10 years ago, they weren't this crazy, or they weren't this angry, or they weren't this materialistic or XYZ. What happens is the people who can't resist try to fit themselves into the box that they think is going to make them the most money, and it will work for a while, but at the end it will burn up your soul. And I cannot live like that. I can't do it.
And we have seen what people look like after that. And and
we've seen a lot over the years, Sunny. I mean, we've been in this business a long time now, and we could name names of people who have come and gone, who we were told these are the next leaders.
Well,
these are the next top things.
That was actually my next question.
We can use Stacey Dash now because she didn't put her video out. So we can use her as an example now because we ain't throwing nobody business out in the street that don't want their business out in the street.
Okay.
She went and put her business out in the street. But Stacey Dash was a perfect example. And I reached out to her and I was like, let me run through these fucking I don't want your spot. You're freaking Stacey Dash. If I can get the information into your damn brain and out of your mouth, that benefits me. That benefits us. That benefits the ideas. Like, you can have the attention. You can, I like my quiet life. I like people not knowing who I am. I like being able to go places and not having to worry about people running up to me and being like, who are you? Like, I like that aspect of my life. I can let you have it. You can have the spotlight. You can have the cameras. You can have all of that. but know what the hell you are talking about. Know why you're saying the stuff that you are saying. And if you don't know, that's why you end up at Fox saying, well, there shouldn't be a Black History Month.
Mhm.
Are you freaking kidding? Like, come on, man. And
Yeah,
so
but
what-
that was just
So that's what I was going to ask. I mean, you mentioned Stacey Dash. We know there are others. Somebody put somebody else in the chat just now. What happens to them? Like, what? Because I think that's going to happen with certain other people, not just one person, but people who I won't name. What happens? Do they just flame out, or do they just decide that they don't want to do it
I'll tell you
anymore?
what happens. I know exactly what happens. They hit either extreme. Typically what happens is the people like that flame out, and but they still need money. They still need to make money. They still need to make a living. And the only way they have to do it now is to capitalize on this controversy or capitalize on this position that they've taken. So a lot of those people, if you go look them up today, they have pushed out to the fringes, and they're now, most of them are banned from Twitter and YouTube now, and they find their niche audiences. And I don't know if that's where Stacey's going to end up, a gal like Stacey. But to be fair, Stacey's an actress. She was never really conservative. I mean, she's a conservative-minded person. I've been in her orbit because of the Hollywood Republican circuit. We've been at events together. She never struck me as a person who was really that interested in the talking points and in the depth of it. She's an actress, and that Hollywood life is for real, man. And you just start living it, and you need the attention. And so when she got attention for supporting Mitt Romney, she just translated it into a career, just like any good actress would do. She translated it into an income. So where does Stacey go now? I know she wants to make more movies, and that's why she came out with this. Now she wants to get back to her acting career. The conservative sphere abandoned her, which will happen as well. If you're not authentic, eventually you will be abandoned. And that happens to everybody who's not authentic. I would put money on Stacey Dash going back to some sort of extreme at some point, whether she pushes hard to the left or if she ends up like on Alex Jones or something and having her niche there. Typically that's what happens. And I'm almost to a person. I mean, everybody I'm thinking about like ends up at some extreme.
And well, for though I want to, like, you believe you are sincere. This is, and for people to say like I'm hard on Black conservatives or Black Republicans, I can believe that you believe you are sincere. Okay, like I can believe that you believe
right. Yes.
these things
You've sold this
to be true.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
But everyone who operates in that space has never seen behind the curtain. What I mean by that is you've never been to your local GOP meeting. You've never like actually tried to work within the system. You've never actually like been told to put on an event. And you say, okay, we're going to have the event in Atlanta in the summertime. It's going to be hot. We're going to do it outside. So what if we make it a white party? Well, you can't have a white party because that's kind of, racist.
No, Black people love a white party. What are you talking about?
No, white
love a good white party.
means to wear all white. And, like, what the hell?
Oh my gosh. Black folks will show up for a white party anywhere.
And then you get the nice backdrops and people get to take the pictures and they look all pretty because everybody is white. Like, that's how we do it. I literally had a fight because it was racial connotation to a white party.
And that's so crazy. That's what I'm saying, that people don't understand this cultural thing. That's so crazy to me because that's a brilliant idea because Black folks freaking love it. I go to a white party me and Marco every year. Every October, we are at a white party.
Every year. Literally, instead of asking about it, they just went ahead and made it racist. So no, you can't have a white party. I was told at an event that I was not allowed to serve fried chicken because I was representing the wrong stereo. No, that's what we eat. See,
No.
this is why I go to your white event and I don't eat shit.
Right,
And
because you don't have no fried chicken.
And I wait for
That bland ass potato salad.
to go to Popeyes and get me something to eat. I'm not eating this. I don't even know what this is.
Give
I can't even
me
recognize
fried
it.
chicken. I don't want your boiled chicken.
And what's
And
a
so
turnip?
literally, they will tell you you can't eat what you normally eat because that's stereotypical. And this is like, I'm legitimately supposed to have this conversation with you. Here's the kicker, and this is where I threw my hands up and I was like, I can't deal with these people. I go to a GOP meeting and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to help these people, right? I'm really gonna try to help. I'm gonna stick it out and we're gonna try to work with this. So we go there. They spent 45 minutes talking about criminal justice reform, right? Making sure programs are in place so when people get out of prisons, they have chances in this. And I was like, so are y'all going to support felons getting their voting rights back? No. Then why don't we talk about people that can actually vote? Because this whole conversation for 45 minutes has been focused on people who cannot currently vote. You are not going to try to help them to get back their right to vote. What is the fucking purpose? What are we doing here? Because you're not helping a constituency that could actually get you into office because you're not even pushing to have that constituency to be counted. What did Democrats do? They came right behind Republicans and started giving the felons back their right to vote. Mm. So you can spend this inordinate amount of time talking about what programs you can put into place to help the felons coming out. But you're not talking about the restoration of their rights, not just their right to vote, but they're also their right to have firearms and protect themselves. Like there's a whole bunch of rights that are lost in this process. You're not fighting for any of that, but you want funding for more government programs to help them once they get out. How progressive of you.
Right.
That does not sound like a conservative conversation. That does not sound like a conservative solution. That sounds like you are operating off a Democratic playbook and you're still wondering why you're losing. Because if they can get that from Democrats, why the hell do they need you?
That's why I'm always saying, this is what I'm always saying. I say this in California too, because we're a one-party rule state. And people say, well, if you run a Republican, you got to run a Republican that's more to the center, that's more to, why? If I'm going to, why would I as a Democrat voter vote for a Republican that's like a Democrat instead of just voting for the Democrat? I mean, it makes no sense. You've got to be, you've got to have that demarcation, or it makes, but again, that's when people pontificate on talking points and not ideas.
All right, ladies. So I just realized that we've been going at it for about an hour and 45 minutes, and I feel like there's still so much more that we could have talked about.
You haven't said anything, Jeff, this whole time.
Like I said, that's how I wanted it. So, but really appreciate you guys coming out. But we'll start with you, Sunny. If you could plug your pluggables.
You can catch me every single Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Sirius Patriot 125. You hear the beat drop. Tomorrow we're going to be having a really, really good show about what kind of political attire are we dressing ourselves in? Are we being slutty politicians? Okay. Are we being classy ones? So that's the conversation.
I vote slutty. I vote for slutty politician.
I think there are some pretty slutty political clothes as well, but we'll decipher what that means.
What about lady in the street and a freak in the bed? Is that an option? Or
listen tomorrow. You might get an actual answer to that.
All right. And Miss Kira Davis, plug your pluggables as if you haven't already.
My Cash App is JLCY. Find me at Just Listen to Yourself with Kira Davis. It's available wherever your podcasts are. Go to my Rumble channel and I put all my video from like news appearances through the week, and it's all clipped up and all nice little sound bites for you. Follow me on Twitter at Real Kira Davis. And I think that's about it. Of course, we have our Red and Black show, which Jeff and I do every Saturday morning. So Red and Black will drop tomorrow. And if you enjoyed this conversation, then I think you'll enjoy Red and Black, because it's kind of on the same lines. It's the idea of just saying the things that maybe are hard to hear, and showing you that for Black conservatives can have very different viewpoints.
Yes.
And still be coming from the same side. I want to thank you, Jeff, for having me. And Sunny, I wanted to say this at the top, but then we got way into the conversation. But whenever somebody asks me who the smartest person I know is, I always say Sunny. Always. Because she is the smartest person I know. And when I think that I know a lot, I listen to her and then I'm like, I gotta go read some more. So I've been reading a lot. We started a book club on my Davis Nation page on Locals. That's something I can plug. davisnation.locals.com. We started a book club, but like Sunny was a person that inspired me to do that, because she's always reading. She's always educating herself. She never stops. Like you quoted Frederick Douglass tonight, Sunny. And the last time you quoted Frederick Douglass, I was like, I haven't read Frederick Douglass in 20 years. I need to go brush up. I went and bought his book and read it again because of you. And my son saw it the other day and he was like, are you reading this? I just read this in high school. I'm like, you know what? You got to keep the ideas fresh. I quote a lot of Frederick Douglass, but I probably don't remember a lot of what I was saying
about Frederick Douglass is we read it before we learn the lessons. So it's just like, I want to say, just
look
like
different
reading,
to me now.
But it's like reading.
So good.
It's like reading scripture, and you can read a scripture at a certain point, but it doesn't have any influence on you until you get into a certain situation. Then when you get in that situation, then the scripture means more at that moment, because it was fit for that moment. And I think that that's what Frederick Douglass does. Any argument that we are having today, you can go back and find that exact same article. That exact same argument in Frederick Douglass.
You're absolutely right.
That tells you how we haven't gone as far
enough.
As we've been when we're having the exact same conversations they were having back in 1883. So,
but it's the same thing, honestly. Like, it's the same. I'm reading the book we're reading right now. It's called Public Opinion by Walter Lippmann. It was written in 1922, and the only way it's about how we form public opinions and how what we think of as independent thought isn't always independent thought. And if that book, the only way you can tell that book wasn't written in 2020 is that he references newspapers. Otherwise, and I find great comfort in it, because I find great comfort in the scripture. There is nothing new under the sun.
Right.
So every time a conservative tells me it's never been this bad, we're never going to win another election, this is the worst time ever, America's in decline, we will never be happy again, we will never be successful again, we've never seen problems like this, I always say there's nothing new under the sun. And
no generation of Americans have failed before us. And the only way your words come to fruition is if we don't fight, because that's what this nation raises. This nation raises the people that will defend her. So we need to become that generation that gives a full-hearted defense of America, good and bad, all of it. And until we get to that point, she will remain undefended. And we need to understand that. What is more important to us, her defense or our squabbles? Choose wisely.
Or our comfort. Yeah. And so if you want to sharpen your ideas, go to Sunny's podcast. She's not going to be nice to you like I am. Just deal with it. Don't come back crying. Some people have come back crying. Don't come back crying. I tried to warn you up front, but if you love Sunny the way I do, you'll appreciate that she challenges you and I don't know. I was just really moved what you said about Grace in the beginning, because that's how I feel about you, the same way, with like sharpening your ideas and critical thinking and delving into your resources. Don't just lean on what you think you know. You should always be educating yourself. You should always be reading. You should always I'm not a hip hop person. I don't like hip hop, but I'll go listen to hip hop because Sunny breaks it down for me and she tells me these messages that are in it that I'm like, oh, that's deep. That's really deep. She makes me go look at something that I wouldn't necessarily go look at. So it's been a pleasure as always, my dear. You can see why we don't do a lot of programs together. It's 2 hours in, and but
doesn't feel like it, honestly.
No, it never does. I hope to see you again really soon, Sunny.
You too as well, love. And thank you, Jeff, for having me on. My Carlton.
That's right.
See, everybody tries to make it sound like it's Will versus Carlton. No, Will and Carlton.
With Carlton, yes.
We make the Renaissance.
I'm Jeffrey. I'm a Jeffrey.
You know what? I'm Jeffrey.
From a different country.
I'm a foreigner who thinks I'm better than everybody else and looks on my nose at everyone and makes me arguments.
But that was a big thing where they think like we hate Carlton. No, we love Carlton. We understand. We understand you gotta have Carlton and Will. The problem is some of these people think they're Carlton and they're not even in the movie. They're not even in the story. You know what I'm saying?
Like, they're old Aunt Viv that got fired from the show, and,
you know
and we pretend.
Oh my God!
I'm done with you.
Bye.
See, she can be saucy when she want to be. Don't let her.
Don't ruin my brand.
Right.
Don't ruin my brand.
Kira,
Bye.
You gotta do this again.
Love you.
I'll see you guys.
Bye.